Hello, welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Son of a Witch. Chapter 7 of Southstairs. In the western disappointments on the evening of this jackal moon, the squirrel herders sent their dogs out to round the sheep earlier than usual. Other workers erected a double row of pliant birdweed fencing around the far edge of the fold's perimeter. Unless cloud cover prevented it, the celestial beast would prevent the night more brilliantly than any other time in a generation. It would make a good night for scavengers. Sister Doctor and Sister Apothecary had done what they could. They had provided comfort to the old princess that her own staff could not. She was happier, though the mood in her tent when she was asleep was ugly. The Scrow people were proud people. Well, what people weren't. They were suspicious of foreign clinical practices. The interpreter put it to the women as gently as she could. You should move on, said Lord Shem Otakos. We have told you what you came to learn, though we know nothing of the scrapings of those colleagues of yours. If your profession is the extension of charity, you have performed your mission. You have benefited Princess Nastoya mightily. There's no reason to linger, and damage to you if you do. We were told you were hospitable to strangers, Sister Doctor reminded him. Stranger, yes, that is the way of the Scrow, said Otakos. After several days, you are less strange than you once were. You become familiar, and therefore, like family, less agreeable. I'd be happy to provide you with a supply of food, but I recommend you start home this very evening and take advantage of this unusually bright night. Sister Doctor said, in this question of the scrapings, we haven't convinced you that the Unimana are blameless, so why would you send us into danger? You've been so good, we'll provide what we can manage by the way of escort, said Lord Otakos and laughed. The nerve, said Sister Apothecary. We've been disinvited. I believe I'm offended. Are you going native? Said Sister Oxter and her Munchkin colleague. The tone verged on the cruel. They're adorable heathen, said Sister Apothecary somewhat wildly. Yes, well, they seem less adorable as they've conquered their aversion to scraping the faces of their visitors. After all, when you were a child, you were adorable heathen too, but you got over it. I don't appreciate your wit, Sister Doctor. It began to seem for a while as if the Monts might disobey the instructions of their superior and split up. However, the Princess Nastoya requested a final interview with them. She felt well enough to sit on the pallet. Have you taken the full measure of my ailment? She said through Shem Otakos to avoid the pawngrams of the wizards against the animals. I went deeply underground many years ago, accepting a witch's charm as a way to hide myself. I am an elephant, and I want to go my death as an elephant, but I am cursed to remain in this human body. I used to be able to change for a brief time, but infirmity and age have eroded those talents, and I am trapped. I fear the elephant within me has been dying for some time, and may be in part dead already, but I could join it if I can only help it. 10 years ago, I asked the witch's boy for help, but he disappeared. Now, through your exotic skills, you have me rally, and so must press this request. Please return to your hive and collect the boy, the man, Liir. Bring him here or send him here. Get him here safely. He may not be able to help me. Even the most blessed of witchcraft has gone underground in these trying times, and he's the only one I know who might be able to help. Do you really think he's Elphaba's son? Asked Sister Doctor. He had her cape, he had her broom, said Princess Nastoya. Maybe it wasn't her son, but he cared about her life, and he may have wanted to learn something anyway. What other course can I take? We've never even seen him awake, admitted Sister Apothecary. It would be hard to promise we could persuade him when we don't know what he's really like yet. In return for his help, I promised him something in exchange. She began to wheeze a bit, and the Otakos collected her phrases hauntingly. I want to tell him I've heard about the word on the street in Emerald City. I'm sure he'll be fascinated, said Sister Doctor, if he ever wakes up. The threat to animals during the wizard's reign crowded me, humanward, and I've been safer than many. Now, as our violently holy emperor demands all our souls, I want to go my death as an animal. Proud, isolated, unconsecrated. Find Liir for me. Hurry. I will give you 2 royal male skarks to ride, and a panther to travel by your side as far as the forest. You will travel faster on the backs of those beasts than you did on foot or on mules. If you aren't ambushed by soldiers or wolves or any other enemy, you may make it by sunrise. At the edge of the forest, the panther will turn back, but the skark will keep on, and by the worst of the jackal moonlight will be spent. The Monts nodded their head and rose to take their leave. They didn't expect to see Princess Nastoya again, dead or alive, an elephant or a human. The Mounts nodded their heads and rose to take their leave. They didn't expect to see Princess Nastoya again, dead or alive. They didn't want to tire her with further discussion. It was she who raised her last point when they were almost beyond addressing. "My friends," she said. They turned. "You have been kind to me and good to each other. I am not so far dead that I haven't seen this. How can we perform such works in the unnamed God, whose angels belittle so?" "The unnamed God does not descend from the Emperor," explained Sister Doctor. She was afraid that an obscure point of contemporary unionist theology might be lost on a pagan, but she was reluctant to treat the princess like a fool. "The unnamed God, whatever they may say in the Emerald City these days, is still in its essence unnamed. We have as much a right to work in His name as anyone else." "Hardly seems worth the bother to believe," murmured Princess Nastoya. "Still, life itself seems more than potentially fantastic, as we believe in life, so I'll let the matter drop. The ride would be swift but rollicking. These scars were large of pelvis, supported by the back legs, stronger than seen on other skark varieties. Around their legs circled the panther like an eddy of black oil, constantly switching by. Lord Shem Otakos escorted them swiftly out of the camp. Sister Apothecary was disappointed that there were so few Skro to wave goodbye to them. "You have noticed that these creatures circling," said Otakos, "that mounts looked uneasily at each other in the sky mean." "Vultures?" said Sister Apothecary, sensing the carrion of Princess Nastoya. She would supply a healthy portion of carrions in a bevy of vultures. "They're higher up than vultures, I think," said Otakos. "So according to the laws of perception, they must be large vultures. Besides, vultures wait for the body to die before approaching. I fear they are a squadron of attack creatures who don't wait until the meat is dead. Perhaps, well, I dare say it, dragons." "Dragons are rare in the first place, and in any case docile," snapped Sister Doctor. "Menacing dragons are only mythology." "Myth has a way of coming true," said Otakos. "I am merely saying be careful." "How kind to have set our minds at ease, just as we depart from your protection." Sister Doctor looked livid. "You have the panther. Nothing will get by her." "Goodbye, then," said Sister Doctor. "I hope you have learned something from us." Sister Apothecary sniffed into the souvenir shawl that she brought as an inflated price from a Skro reaver. Shem Otakos watched them leave. He did not wish them well, at least as far as the Monterey and the completion of their task for his princess. Beyond that, he wished them nothing at all. Let their unnamed God go on manning their lives for them. The snout of the jackal moon poked over the line of the trees. Liir was nearly gray. The bleeding was staunched, but his heart was lurching. Handel worked at her throat, trying to scream for help, but she could not make a strong sound. "No," she thought, "the poor cold boy. Not this." She put her minging down, rubbed his shoulders, and then she removed his splints and bracelets and massaged his arms and legs. The air was turning from chilly to icy, and the extra blankets were in the hallway. Beyond the locked door, she felt something lurched in him. He, who had been absent for so long, something kicked and resisted that seemed to be so unsettling upon him. His breath was halting. A moment later, without a breath, another. She leaned over his brow from above and held his newly bearded cheeks in his hand, and laid her rose next to his and breathed onto him. and kissed him besides. "Well, there's something here for you now," said Chyde. "It never hurts to read the small print, my lad. Jibbity, my walking stick. And it's not even that far. Though in a quarter I rarely get to visit myself. Let's go." The elf came forward with a walking stick, and Chyde stood erect as he could. Long years of desk work had crushed his hips cruelly, and his posture was poor. Still at a new angle, he was able to look Liir over a bit more thoroughly than he'd yet managed. "You hadn't ought to have ridden with a firearm," he said with sudden harshness. "You'll leave with that jibbity-dee at once, my laddie-o." "It's no firearm, it's a broom. Show it to me." Liir opened the satchel and displayed the top end of the charred broom pole. "Let me see the length of it, to be sure it's not a blunderer in disguise." The broom was withdrawn, and Liir handed it over. "A right wreck of a thing, but for new growth," said Chyde, handing it back. "What?" Liir didn't ask again, but felt it. The broom handle was notched with young nubs, and two of them had split, revealing modest embellishments of pale green leaf, like tiny rare brooches pinned to an old bit of scrap wood. "It can't grow," said Liir in amazement. "It can't do that." "Put it away," said Chyde. "Some folks haven't seen a green leaf growing in 20 years. You don't want to get them all weepy now, do you? Mercy is the name of the game in this trade." He kissed a vulgar emerald on the knuckle of his own middle finger, paying obeisance. They set off, not in the direction of the waterway, but along a broad passage that served as a commercial parade for the Yes, dear? They set off, not in the direction of the waterway, but along a broad passage that served as a commercial parade for the underground settlement. More humans in evidence now, part of the vast employment network that kept Southstairs running, even though shops and stalls were largely staffed by elves who seemed to have raised obscureness to an art form. Here and there, the nice contrast of a grumpy dwarf. The noise was ordinary chatter and gossip. It was some time before Liir realized that it might seem strange. For once, there was no little strain of music playing off to one side. Well, who would play music in a prison, after all? The roofs of the cavern rose higher up ahead, passing out of view into darkness. More of the structures were freestanding, supplied with their own tiled roofs, like buildings on an underground above street. It felt like a tiny city of the dead. Eventually, Liir could see why. They must be the oldest district in Southstairs. It certainly seemed the most decrepit so far. Above it, all at once, the claustrophobic blackness of a cave-dark sky gave way to the blackness of a different story. A moonless night with scratchy scarves of cloud being drawn by the wind across ancient disaffected stars. It was the middle of Southstairs, the original geological bucket that must have suggested itself as a natural prison to the first settlers of the Emerald City. "Stars, they give me the creeps," said Chyde. "I hate to come this way." They found a set of steps leading farther down. Chyde asked for directions once or twice and said jibbity, scampering to check the marks on the building. This'll be it, I guess," he said. "It's an animal district, so you'll forgive me the stench. Hygiene isn't their strong suit, you know." The air was cold, though with a wind whipping in from above, the smell seemed negligible. At any rate, Liir was too excited to care. He found himself bobbing up and down, and once he nearly grabbed Chyde's hands to squeeze it. So what about the shell was a blunder, that Lady Glinda was a glamorous airhead? They'd done something good. He'd gotten there. He'd find her his only parent friend-mate. His half-sister, if that version of history was true. The girl who befriended mice and shared her gingerbread, and who had giggled at bedtime even by threatening a spanking. He would liberate Nor, and then. He couldn't think beyond that, just to see her someone he had known once, back when the world had been something other than tragic. Back when Elphaba had been stalking about the castle out west in her robes and rages. Back when home was still home. Chyde skivered for back and anxious and irritable. "What's the matter, Thingy?" asked Chyde. "Cat got your tongue? Ha ha." He turned to Liir and said, "It did, you know. That's why you can't talk. It'll grow back in time. But at the moment, it's a bloody little stump." They pressed into a building more a pen than a set of salons. A sow was lying in a straw trying to warm some piglets. Most of them looked to be dead. In probability, the runt had to survive, but it was not long for this world. Chyde voiced what Liir himself was wondering. An odd place to put a girl child. What was I thinking of? You, sow. We're looking for a girl, a human girl. Child. Name of Nor. The register puts her in this unlikely spot. She has some developmental problems, explained the sow without opening her eyes. Some lodging coordinators decided among the likes of me and mine she wouldn't seem as offensive. Where is she? I would construct a good story if I had the strength, said the sow, but I'm conserving what energy I have left for my litter. In fact, the girl's own story is good enough. Do you remember when the butchers came through a week or so ago to cull the crop because a rooster of loin was required? Some celebration upside. It was the wizard's disposal, wasn't it? Chyde looked slantways at Liir. We don't sacrifice animals for ceremonial meals. Don't be silly, he said hastily. You're talking through your own post-delivery delirium, sow. He twisted the rings on his finger, turning some jewels palmward, other jewels out. Whatever, she said. My deliriums remind me of a couple of horned hogs. Long in tooth, they still had teeth. Who were going to make better rump-roasts this year than next, I tell you. They knew their days were numbered. One of them had broken a horn trying to escape, and the bone spur was sharp and useful. Didn't you read the report on this? I've fallen behind. Terrible workload and no one to pick up the slack. Chyde's next to useless. Where is the girl? That's what I want to know. I'm telling you, the hogs entered a kind of suicide pact, and the bull killed the bitch and then himself. They arranged it to be done on the slab of old door on which they carried out for slaughtering anyway. A kind of a final comment on the quality of life at Southstairs. Only the best is good enough, said Chyde. So they let themselves putrefy, and we had neighbors left them as long as we could stand it. It brought us all one time, but we know as well that the entrails of horned hogs breed a kind of maggot that likes to burrow into human orifices, especially the airless ones. Stop. And there's little airless than Southstairs. I don't want to hear about it. So your colleagues had to cart the carcasses outside. They had no choice. Chyde said softly, "You'll get an extra bucket of slops for this. Keep on." I have no ways of suspecting that the poor suckling Nor had functioning brain left in her skull, said the sow, but apparently she did. She climbed up onto the door slab and pulled the hog carcass over her. I certainly hope for her sake she plugged in all her valves. I saw her chewing candle wax once, so maybe she was softening it for such a purpose. Anyway, hidden by corpses, she was carried away a few days ago, though what happened to her once she left our happy home I can't say. The very least of my concern, said Chyde. He glanced at Liir, who was trembling, pale, and gulping for air. You taking so hard, lad? Why is that? Sounds like she got out. Something you've never persuaded me into allowing. Don't weep, silly boy. Then he said, Chyde, the runt. Of course you don't, said the sow, struggling to her feet. The elf was defter, though, had scrambled all over the boards and across the straw and snatching the piglet before the sow could position herself in full defense. You bastard, she cried. I've been remiss. I haven't noticed. Poor sow, you've far too much on your mind. This should relieve you of your distractions. Chyde grabbed the squealing pig from the elf and hurled it against a beam. His aim was true. The blood spattered, and the body fell with a thud into the slop trowel. In shock, Liir fell against the fence, and the maddened sow went after him, but Chyde, laughing, pulled the boy away in time. You should have let someone know these shenanigans were going on, he said to the sow. Being a squealer isn't such a bad thing in a pig. And we all know we have our duty. You and me and the little least daisy in the field. Okay, and that's the end of that chapter. See you later.